everybody. Welcome to the July edition of the Desktop Indaba, the Ubuntu Desktop Team Indaba. Today, I'm very excited to bring to you Liam from Gaming on Linux to answer all of your gaming questions. And we also have Aaron, my wonderful co-host. So let's get started. Liam, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, I'm Liam. I run Gaming on Linux, which as of last month, I've been running it for 14 years now, just covering everything and anything Linux and gaming.
Wow. 14 years is a very long time. That's great. How did you get started with this? 14 years ago?
I've always been interested in gaming, obviously. And my late granddad bought me my first computer, and it was at the very end of doing all of my exams in secondary school. And the moment I came rushing home to turn it on, it booted up with something called Mandrake. And I was like, what's that? I had no concept of really what Linux was then. So that was like my first entry into it. I was like, oh, this isn't like Windows 2000 or whatever it was back then. And I just sort of kept going back to it, like dual booting Linux or just going back to Windows. But then eventually, funnily enough, Ubuntu came along. And that was really where I actually started to stick with Linux a lot more. But then because I was interested in gaming, I wanted to game on it as well. So I was searching around for like Linux gaming news sites. And there was really only like maybe one or two at the time. And I was reading them kind of religiously, but there wasn't a lot of news on them. Like there just wasn't a lot of games, and the people making these sites weren't doing much on them. And I just thought maybe I could do a bit better.
That's awesome. I know that I started using Wine a long time ago, and then when an update came along and broke Hearthstone for me, I was like flip the table mad. So I really appreciate all the effort that you have done to make this smooth for people. So outside of Linux and gaming, I assume you have other interests.
Funnily enough, actually, only recently, this is going to sound really bad, but recently I started reading, right? But bearing in mind, I'm 35 this month, and this will be the first book I've read in my adult life. I don't know why. I've been spoiled by games and movies, and especially now, you've got all these streaming services. You can load up Disney Plus or Netflix and so on, and just scroll until you don't find something. And yeah, but then I just started thinking about just life and how we spend our time. And I wanted to do something else, so I've just started reading. So that is kind of like the main other thing right now, apart from going to the pub.
Could you tell us what book you're reading?
So I'm actually reading as the first one. It's probably not the greatest one to jump into straight away, but I started reading Starship Troopers, the original novel, because I liked the original film and the sort of satirical take that it had on the military complex and so on, and the book is very, very different.
It is. I've read that book, so when you're done, let me know. I have opinions and would like to chat about them with you.
I'm only maybe about quarter of the way through, but yeah, it's some bits of it are a bit
Heinlein in general.
The next Desktop Indaba can be a book club. The very first.
Gosh, but then we would have a hard time choosing which book. I mean, I would push for some sort of sci-fi or fantasy. But yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Liam, if I can switch gears a little bit onto more of the technical side, how has the advent of Proton and DXVK change your coverage of the Linux gaming ecosystem?
That's a good question. So when I started gaming on Linux originally, this is back in the days where Wine couldn't really run much of anything at all. So the entire platform of the Gaming on Linux website was built on native games, basically, and covering native releases and, you know, major updates to games that people might be interested in. But then Wine started getting better, and a lot better, so I started covering a bit more of that. But then Proton comes along, and I still remember being sat in this office, although my desk was over there at the time, and I was there like, what? Just my mind was blown, and it's completely different now. There is just, I mean, with the likes of Proton, you can be probably 90% sure if you buy something on Steam, you're just going to click the play button. It's probably going to work. So now it's really like, I can just pick a game if I like the look of it and think other people might like the look of it, try it, and if I like it, video it or write an article, and it's completely changed everything.
I have this memory of trying The Witcher 3 through Wine before DXVK came out, and I think I got about 3 frames and Geralt's hair would randomly disappear. And then I think it was like 0.2 of DXVK, and it suddenly went from 3 FPS to 60, and it was playable and actually ran quite well. And I thought, oh my God, this is huge. And it seemingly came out of nowhere almost overnight.
Yeah, we had a long-running forum post on the Gaming on Linux website of people testing and retesting specifically The Witcher 3, and it was like multiple pages long of people constantly testing it. It was amazing.
I think your website was actually where I first learned about DXVK coming on the scene. So in that same regard,
I've learned a lot from that. Yeah.
So in that same regard, beyond Proton, the Steam Deck came out, which was also industry shaking. So I imagine that probably changed some of your coverage. And also, how have you found that it changed the diversity of your audience? Because people have this assumption that everyone that's a Steam Deck must be a bunch of Linux nerds, but that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, that's another interesting one. Again, it's very much like Proton. So it's a difficult one, really, because the Gaming on Linux website and everything that I do originally was pure desktop, whereas now you've got this Steam Deck, and it's like you said, a lot of people sort of make this assumption that they're Linux users, but they're not. Like, I have tabs set up on a TweetDeck and Mastodon of like tracking Steam Deck, and most of the messages that I see, and in fact, I've got it on Instagram as well. I follow the Steam Deck tag. Most of the people buying it are not even PC gamers, like, at all. So they, of course, they're not Linux users either. So it has massively expanded both the audience for me and just Linux gaming in general, but not just Linux gaming. People are finding out about Linux and learning about it. Like, you'll see posts on Reddit, on the Steam Deck Reddit all the time, of people talking about how interesting and actually good Linux is now. Well, obviously, we've known this for a couple of years now, you know, or like you guys. But yeah, it's amazing to see. You've got so many new people, and like, if you look at the latest Steam survey, so every month you might have seen it when you load up Steam. It'll have like a pop-up saying, "Do you want to submit to the survey?" And they gather your hardware information, including your distro. 40% of Linux people on Steam are now all on Steam Deck. 40% of the entire Linux gaming market is now Steam Deck, basically.
That's wild. And that's only been, what, 2 years, if that?
What, 1 year, isn't it? Was it? I think
Yeah.
it was only last year.
Not even a full 2 years.
I got mine in October of last year. Yeah. So quick follow-up question though. So that's interesting. I've been a Linux nerd, but not a PC gamer, because I found board games first. So I was kind of waiting, as a Linux nerd, I was waiting for something like this to come along. And then I know lots of people that are PC gamers that are not Linux nerds, and they have got in with the Steam Deck. Do you think that it is increased, like, you know, there's people from both of these camps that the Steam Deck is bringing together. Do you think that there are people out there that are getting introduced to PC gaming and Linux at the same time through this? Or do you think it's just bringing people from one camp or the other kind of together?
Oh, no, there is definitely people that are completely new to sort of mainstream gaming that have been buying it. I mean, after the show, or anyone who listens to it, go on just Instagram, hit the Steam Deck tag, and just look at all the people doing posts and stuff. And like, you see some of the skins, like I see yours in the background, which is really cool. Mine's really basic right now, but there's lots of people who I wouldn't have thought would be getting a Steam Deck or really into gaming, and they have a Steam Deck and it's all customized. It's like completely pink with like joystick covers that are like little cats and everything. It's amazing what people do.
Yeah, that's great. I've actually had a couple of friends over and we did a skin party. So I have like the heat gun. I was like, I will help you. This will be fun.
Oh, see, the first time I tried to put a skin on mine, I didn't have a hairdryer, heat gun, or anything. All I had was like a little fan heater, so I just sat in front of it with it like that to try and get it on. It was so bad.
Oh yeah, I luckily already had it for like making cosplay stuff, so that worked. So that's kind of like where Linux gaming has kind of come up to. What are you most excited about looking for the future of Linux gaming?
Good one.
Yeah, it's a hard question.
So we have Proton, we have the Steam Deck, we have Valve putting lots of resources into lots of different areas of Linux, like GPU drivers is one of the big ones that they've been sorting out. I really want to see what they do now. Like, they've got all this ready, but what comes next? Is there going to be a Steam Deck 2? Maybe. But we've seen lots of rumors about they're potentially doing a new VR headset. And from the patents I saw and what other people have sort of seen through leaks and so on, is that it's going to have a standalone mode, which obviously that's going to run Linux on it. So yeah, that's going to be really, really interesting. But I think anti-cheat is the biggest next one, because there are quite a few of the most popular games you still cannot play. Like, you could get into them, say to the main menu, but if you try and go into a game, you'll get booted out. And that is, yeah, once that's properly sorted out, that would be amazing.
I saw one of your recent videos on your YouTube channel where you talked about BattleBit, which is this really popular, like almost Roblox-looking Battlefield game. And there was a big controversy of them switching over to a non-Linux compatible anti-cheat. And that's a huge deal, because you're going to isolate all these potential Linux desktop users and potentially Steam Deck users.
Yeah, it's interesting when it comes to indie developers like BattleBit, because if I've got this right, there's only 3 people doing that game. Like, you go onto the game website and it only says there are 3 on the team. And one of the reasons it can be a problem, because you can buy a game, it can work, but then if they adjust something with the anti-cheat, then that's it. You've spent this money and it's broken. But there were complaints about it in their Steam forum, and one of the people in the Steam forum who's on their team said that if I've got this right, it was along the lines of they're not going to switch to this anti-cheat called Face It, but then you had somebody else saying, yeah, we are switching to Face It, but we're going to keep the other anti-cheat around. It's like, right, so you're going to split the community. But then I checked my YouTube only today, and then one of the developers actually commented on the video to say they're going to keep it compatible. So it's like, okay, so your plan has changed for the 3rd time, right? Okay. But this is one of the major problems right now with just Linux gaming in general, with Proton and anti-cheat, and it is a repeating problem. And I've seen like other creators do videos on these multiplayer games, and it's like, I will ask them, have you got any confirmation from the developer that the anti-cheat, is supported? It's working as it should be. And then a week later, it's completely broken. It's very frustrating.
So besides that example, do you generally have like game developers like reach out to you directly?
Oh yeah, every day I wake up to a full inbox. Like, I look at my phone, and oh god, no, because I'm in the UK, and the majority of the gaming industry really is in the US. So I'm in a completely different working time zone to most of my industry. So Yeah, there will be
I
a lot of emails.
Does that usually take the form of people asking you to like review their game, or just like weigh in on like how it plays, or what are, like, what's the content of those emails typically look like?
It can be a huge mixture. A lot of it is just developers sending keys. There'll be hundreds of just press email blasts going out about every single game, ever made. And you've got thousands of games releasing every month. So you can imagine, what a single person's inbox doing it all alone is like. It's just maddening at times. But there's a lot of like Chinese hardware emails that are coming through over the last couple of years as well. And it's a lot of them don't even bother looking at what I do. I think I'm just on so many lists nowadays. It's like, I'm sure every single day without fail, there will be some sort of Bluetooth iPad keyboard that some company wants me to look at. It's like, why?
So what are your favorite games, like classic and current games?
Well, if you want a classic game, so I started gaming on the Amiga. I don't know if you guys have it. Yeah. Yeah, you had, one of you has at least. Okay. So I started, I think it was the Amiga and the Sega Master System, the original one. But on the Amiga, it was really, in Europe, it was called UFO Defense, something like that. But America will know it as XCOM.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a board game for that as well. It's very stressful.
So I was really massively heavily into that one originally. And Dune 2, it's like one of the first proper real-time strategy games where you're building a base and sending units, across the map. Those two are just absolute classics. But then for modern games, well, the latest XCOM, I still love all the turn-based strategy stuff. But I have just picked up a new game, which as soon as we're done here, I'm going to carry on playing, called Dave the Diver. And it is amazing. It's this little sort of side-scrolling, it's kind of 2.5D. I don't know if you would say it that. But you're literally just this big diver guy. And you're swimming around, catching fish, shooting sharks with harpoons. But you've also got a restaurant that you help out with as well. But every time you jump into the water, it regenerates the area for you. And it's just one of those games where you could just sink into. And I think I was going to be a bit late if I didn't stop playing it earlier. Because it's one of those games.
It's got
Is this
got the
a
hooks
Steam
in
Deck
you.
compatible game?
Oh, it is literally perfection on the Steam Deck. Yeah, it's amazing.
What kind of game is it? Like game mechanics, would you say? Or is...
It's hard to pin to a proper genre, really.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Maybe I'll check it out then. I tend to go for like tower defense or real-time strategy games.
If you like tower defense, have you seen Bloons?
No.
Bloons TD6 is probably one of the best tower defense games ever made. Me and my son, like, that's his desk behind me. We do it in co-op online with each other. Like, every time he's here, we got so many hours in it. It's amazing.
Okay, thank you for that. I will definitely be checking that out and challenging Aaron, probably. Goodness.
Liam, if I can ask you some community-centric questions, being that I'm on the community team, how can the community, be it the general Linux community or even the Ubuntu community, how can they help your work with gaming on Linux?
Well, there's two main things I would say the first is don't assume I know something. Don't assume I've seen an announcement of a game. Don't assume I know about this awesome new piece of software. If you find something cool, email it in, or we've got a suggested news channel in the Discord. You can post it in there, dump it in the forum. Just make sure, tag me somewhere, make me aware of it. And the other one really is if you see something I've done that you like, just share it somewhere.
Awesome.
And like you would like people to reach out to you mostly on Mastodon or do you still do Twitter these days as that ship sinks, or?
Yeah, I'm waiting to see what happens on Twitter, really. But the easiest places to reach me, you can reach me generally anywhere. Mastodon, Twitter, Discord, email. Take your pick, really.
Yeah. Right. So there was a question that a community member submitted for you. And that is kind of going back a little bit to the technical side. There has been a lot that has happened in Linux since 2018, 2017, and now. Besides more people coming to the Steam Deck, have you seen the audience change? How have you seen the audience change? I'm also kind of curious if you have any idea in terms of females that play. Have you seen an increase there? Or
in regards to that's not something that I really honestly pay attention to or track because I'm not interested in who people are, really.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I just try and welcome everyone. I don't care who people are, what people are into, or just as long as you're cool,
Yeah, no, that's fair. I just ask because I'm always looking for more females in my spaces.
In regards to just audience changes, though, that goes back to how Proton and the Steam Deck have changed everything. Like back in this earlier years, and this is a problem that just the Linux community has in general anyway. You get a lot of zealot attitudes, like people have this single focus on something, and if you have an opposing opinion, like the distro wars that used to be such a big thing, like people would be having a go at each other, swearing constantly, about whatever distro you're using. It's none of that matters really. But nowadays you really don't see a lot of these kind of attitudes anymore. The big one now really is between, you have this really big split down the middle of people who just don't really care and will just play games in Proton. But then you have the people who will only buy games that have a natively built Linux version, and they crash a lot. And it's one of the things I'm sort of trying to stamp out in a way, because it's just so completely unproductive, especially just for a gaming site and for me as a gamer. And I think 99% of people who play games just want to click the play button and know that the game works, and that's it.
Yeah.
And if history is any indicator, some of those games that were once native, after so many years, suddenly stopped working, or they had their own share of issues, but yet they work perfectly fine on Proton. So as you said, it seems kind of self-defeating to have that war between native versus Proton, especially when Proton has brought how many thousands of games now that were inaccessible to the community.
Yeah, and that's the main point that I really hope that eventually people focus more on, is just, does the game work? Okay, cool. That's really what matters. And in a case of developer support is, the key word. It doesn't matter really whether it's emulated, whether it's a natively built version, whether it's a Windows build running through Proton, as long as you've got proper support from somewhere, whether it's from Valve constantly updating Proton, whether it's from the developer fixing up issues that they can and get it working better in Proton, which actually we've seen a lot of since the Steam Deck was released. I'm sure I'm writing every other day, this game, the developer, did this and now it works, sort of thing. And just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, in our final few minutes, if you had one request of the community folks watching this, what would that be? If you had a final message or request, ask of the community.
If you buy a game and you like it, write a little review somewhere, whether it's on Steam, whether it's on GOG or your favorite store. Write a little review saying, you liked it, because it really helps developers. And especially if you like the game, reviews can make or break a game selling well, because even Steam has, algorithms here and there that push games higher through reviews and so on. And I think it's really important to, support developers who are putting out good games.
Yeah. I have a question as well. I guess one last question. So when I got my Steam Deck, I definitely went on like a Steam purchase rampage of all of these games that I wanted to play. And then I found that some of them worked really well on the Steam Deck and some of them didn't. Even if it was like deck verified, there would still be some changes needed. And I would just get frustrated. Is there do you have any recommendation for kind of, getting through that, figuring out, how to reconfigure things? Is there like a database? I mean, I know there's Proton DB that, has the various levels. But how would, I guess, a new PC gamer like myself get through those hurdles?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because the Steam Deck is such a different platform when you think compared to your phone or a Switch or an Xbox or a PlayStation. It's really, especially when it comes to Linux as well, with the compatibility side of it, it's quite a difficult one, really, because that is why Deck Verified is supposed to exist. But hello, Kat. But yeah, there are times where Deck Verified games don't work correctly. But then you've got the opposite side where they've tagged things as unsupported, which work perfectly. I think really it's just if something doesn't work, ask for help somewhere, whether that's posting on your Twitter, your Mastodon, your Discord, and so on. There's hundreds of communities out there of people that will help. It's just a question of asking for it. And not just saying this game doesn't work. If you are going to ask for support, just try and put a sentence or two about what you did and what happened, please.
Yeah. Right. General bug filing rules. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, okay. Well, I think unless you have any final questions, Aaron, or final comments, Liam, I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah, my only question for Liam would be if he could share all of the places that people can find him and the Gaming on Linux resources, and we'll be sure to put them in the description of this video.
Yeah. If you search for Gaming on Linux, all one word, anywhere, you'll probably find me. So Twitter, Mastodon, GamingOnLinux.com, Discord, IRC, Instagram, Threads. That's the new one.
No.
Literally everywhere.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time and all of your hard work over the years to make PC gaming on Linux more accessible and usable. If this level of gaming was available when I started with Linux, or even before I found like tabletop games, I probably would not have become a crazy tabletop gamer. So I'm really glad this is here now. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. So let's say goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liam.